Dobro večer, moje ime je Lana Kulas. Dobro večer, moje ime je Lana Kulas. Dobro večer, moje ime je Lana Kulas. 晚上好，我是可以呢。Salam alaikum, halas, shukran, habibi. Good evening, my name is Lana Kulas, and I have just greeted you in 6 languages. Impressive, right? Perhaps not so much, because the total sum of my Arabic is what I just said, which is, peace be upon you, thank you, enough, my love. Despite my apparent linguistic dexterity, 3 of those languages are practically the same. None of them are my mother tongue, none of them are my first language, and I am not a native speaker of any of those languages. But what do those terms even mean, and why do we attach so much importance to people who can speak certain languages, like English, as a native speaker? And yet, we are also equally impressed by those who can master complex languages like Arabic and Mandarin as a second language. Let's have a look at the definitions. So your mother tongue is the language that you learn as a baby, and a native speaker is someone who speaks a language as their first language, and it is not a language that they have learned as a foreign language as an adult. My mother tongue is Srpsko-Hrvatski, Hrvatsko-Srpski, but I have greeted you in 6 languages today. I greeted you in Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian, Chinese, Arabic, and English. But my mother tongue is actually Srpsko-Hrvatski, Hrvatsko-Srpski, or in English, Serbo-Croatian, Croatian-Serbian. Apparently, this language no longer exists. So in my family, we simply call it Nashki, or our language. If I had to write down on paper what I officially speak, I guess I would say I speak Bosnian. When I was 8 years old, I lived in a country called Yugoslavia, and I spoke a language called Serbo-Croatian. When I turned 9, I was told Yugoslavia no longer existed and Serbo-Croat was no longer a language. And the first time I really realized this was when my mother had to go to the Red Cross to collect food aid and food parcels. And in order to get her hands on the food, which was leftovers from the Vietnam War, she had to complete a form. And she had to complete this form 3 times. The first time she completed it, under nationality, she wrote Yugoslavian. The aid worker went, "Nope, you cannot write that." Why? Well, it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so what am I supposed to write? Well, you have a choice: Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian. Geographically, we lived in Bosnia, so she went, okay, Bosnian. Then she filled the form in a second time, and under language, she wrote Serbo-Croatian. "No," the lady said, "doesn't exist." Okay, what's my choice now? Okay, same choice: Bosnian, Croatian, Serbian. So my mother went, okay, Bosnian. That day, we became Bosnian, and we spoke Bosnian, and we ate spam left over from the Vietnam War. As the war in Bosnia showed no signs of ending, we moved to England, and I started primary school and had to learn English. I was in grade 4, and I had never learned phonics. To this day, I could not teach phonics to anybody, despite being an English teacher. But I used my mother tongue, Serbo-Croatian, and my knowledge of the Serbo-Croatian alphabet to learn to read. And my language learning experience had some very amusing moments, but I didn't always understand what was so funny to everybody else. In primary school, I was asked to draw a picture of my family and label how I would say the words in my language. So I dutifully labeled my mother as Mama, my dad as Tata, and each of my brothers as Brat. My teachers did what you did. They all laughed. I had no idea what was so funny until 5 years later, when I was in an English GCSE class, that I read the words, "Come here, you little brat," in a novel, and I realized what was so funny those many years ago. My lack of native speaker status was never really a problem until I started university, and I started realizing huge gaps in my background knowledge and my vocabulary. My friends at university thought that this was very funny. So they would try to look for words that I didn't know the meaning of. And they came upon the word chaffinch. They told me that a chaffinch was a silver platter often used for serving drinks at a celebration. So when I passed my final exam at university, I went up to the barman and I said, I would like a pint of beer on a chaffinch, please. My friends laughed, the barman looked confused, and then I realized that a chaffinch was actually a type of bird. Now, recently, I received this message on LinkedIn. And the only thing that seems to qualify me for the role that is being advertised is that the person writing to me has assumed that I'm a native English speaker. And I wonder what they have based that on. Is it the education that I have listed on my profile? Is it that they have maybe come across a video from Huili School where I am talking? Is it my country of citizenship? Or is it perhaps my photograph? And I wondered, the message they've sent me, would they have sent that to someone from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Fiji, or India, where there are literally millions of native English speakers? Now, I could probably apply for that job, and they would not question whether I'm a native speaker, and I could probably get away with it. And it would be for the same reason that my friends at university were surprised that English is not my first language. It's because of the way I look, and also because of the accent that I have. I learned English through complete immersion in a small primary school in West London in the south of England. I had no choice. Nobody at my school spoke my language, and everybody sounded the same. I became friends with English speakers, I watched TV in English, and I spoke English all the time, and I read books in English. I therefore picked up the accent that was around me. I was just about the right age, and I had enough neuroplasticity to adopt the accent that I heard around me. So my accent is a mixture of biology, sociology, geography, and pure chance. Sometimes, when I have been abroad, people have said, oh, you speak the Queen's English. Or perhaps it is now the King's English. What they are actually referring to is something called received pronunciation. And the definition of received pronunciation is very old. And it is referred to as the standard form of British English pronunciation based on educated speech in southern England, widely accepted as the standard elsewhere. What this is a description of an accent, and it was coined by this gentleman, A.J. Ellis, in 1869. 1869, the height of the British Empire. So why do we still obsess over such a thing, which is how our words sound? Because surely the purpose of language is to ensure the clarity of communication rather than to denote a status. Our accent is based simply on the way that we choose to pronounce our vowels and our consonants. And nobody really knows why we develop accents the way that we do. One theory is that because we are all very social beings, we wish to be accepted, and therefore we adopt the sounds of those who are around us. So when a job asks for a native speaker of English, are they actually talking about language ability and language proficiency? Or are they talking about something else? Are they perhaps talking about a culture or an accent? Because accents are inextricably linked to geography, regionality, and therefore nationality. And if we show a preference for a particular accent, we may be hiding some uncomfortable biases of our own. And would we rather listen to somebody who sounds and pronounces their words correctly, or those who say the correct thing? Now, I have seen this prejudice firsthand. My mother, when she speaks English, has a very thick Eastern European accent. She speaks English the way I speak Bosnian, loudly, directly, and sometimes a little aggressively. And throughout her life, she has struggled to get work in her field as an accountant because of the way she sounds when she speaks English. So she sets up her own business and has just recently retired, having been very successful. Her clients find her accent charming, her directness a little bit frightening, but they always ensure that their taxes are filed on time. I think an accent is like a badge of honor, and I am really sad that mine is not more interesting. I think an accent is part of who we are, and it lets us celebrate our differences, and it lets us celebrate diversity. If somebody speaks a language with a foreign accent, it does not mean that they speak less well. It means they speak that language and another language. It makes them a far more interesting person. And usually it means they speak English as well as numerous other languages. So I think we need to think carefully and rethink that term, native speaker, and consider whether it is hiding our prejudice towards something else. Do we really want to speak King's English of 1869, or do we just want to be ourselves? Hvala vam, hvala vam, hvala vam. Shukran. Thank you. 谢谢。